Okay, I feel like it's my obligation to talk about this. I've been a Briar enjoyer for a while now, and it kind of pains me to see her nerfed in every patch because I know the end result. Briar will just suck. There will come a time where Briar will literally just suck, and she will be impossible to play without getting insanely fed early game, which is already kind of a situation. Like, if you're not fed early game as Briar, you're basically nothing. And I hate to see this. I also hate to see how overpowered she is in early, in a lower elo, because people just don't know how to play against her. And in higher elo, she's completely absent. I don't want to say completely, but yeah, mostly it's like that. And it kind of isn't helped when Riot does these changes. They basically nerf like a bunch of her stats, and then like that's it. So they gave her like the ability to jump towards, which is completely worthless on her Q because you will never want to use it to jump towards. Like literally never. It is never worth it. And now they're giving the Q an increased range. I don't get what Riot is trying to do with these changes, and I want to like talk about some ways that potentially can fix this problem. And the first one is to move a bunch of her stats from her other abilities to her ultimate, which is currently not really used that much. Like her ultimate is good. Like people will be just genuinely surprised at how good that is, but it has so much downsides that I almost never end up using it. Unless I'm like far away and I want to get into a fight, because like how much downsides actually is. Like often I'd find that the movement speed bonus from my ultimate is actually a downside. Like it's just that bad. So here's the first change. And this is a major one. I want to reduce the ultimate's range by about half. I think about 3,300, which is the same range as Swain's W. At least that's how it used to. I think they actually buffed Swain's W now. So, about less than the range from mid lane to bot lane. Less than that. Which currently it's way larger than that. I mean, so massively, massively, massively reduce the range of her ultimate. But in return, massively reduce the animation of her ultimate. So whenever she starts to cast it, it takes forever, which basically means that you can never use it in the middle of a fight. I want to be the exact opposite. I want to be where it's actually specifically best to be used in the middle of a fight. So that's that. The second thing is her ultimate now applies the shred from her Q. So her Q no longer applies the shred. Now the ultimate applies the shred. Um, and that's whenever it hits the enemy. So the missile itself applies the shred, and then you fly to the enemy. Um, so then the next thing I want to do is W. I think the W stats are a little too much, and it's kind of hard to change it since so much of Briar is on the taunt and the way she uses it. And it's kind of really hard to actually like balance that in a good way that isn't just insanely stat checky. And I genuinely am not sure exactly how to do this. If you reduce a lot of the attack speed, which is currently what they're doing, from Bar's W, then she becomes an assassin, which is definitely not what you want. Since, yeah, there's just not many good attack speed um, bruiser items, which means that she might have to go Bork, which is currently something you almost never want to do because it's actually bad for her since she scales so well with HP. But if like they reduce a lot of the attack speed that she gets, then she just go for like stat check items. Since at the end of the day, she is just a stat check champion. The question is like, how much does she live when she stat checks? An idea I've had, I think I've already talked about this last time I talked about Briar, is to make it so her W starts in like a lower taunt and make it so her ultimate is like the second half of it. In a way, I think I've like expressed this similar idea where I said that. So basically, I want her W to be way lower duration and either be extended massively by the ultimate. But then like the biggest problem is that the ultimate doesn't work like her W taunt, which is not what I knew when I actually made that video. I don't think at least I knew it by then. I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not. But yeah, I did not know that her ult will just completely taunt on the champion she hits. I don't actually like that it does that. I like the idea that you have to kind of use your Q for that. So yeah, that's kind of another thing. Um, so maybe make her ultimate just act as a second taunt. That's like a pretty good solution to the problem. So if you're going in team fights and you really want to use your ultimate, your W is just not enough. I mean, it's a good gap closer and it's a good uh like last hit, right? Because it has that missing health damage. But in like extended fights and you want to use your ultimate more. But then you can still use your W to like maneuver around fights while still being taunted. That's kind of a cool idea. This gives her a lot more skill, right? So you actually need to skillfully use your W and Q in the middle of fights while also using your ultimate in the middle of fight, instead of it just being like a one taunt. I think it's a really good idea. It kind of invalidates the way her ult works, but I think it's so much better for balancing. I also really don't like point and click stunts, but like you can't really add it to any different ability. Like, what can you do? The only thing I can think is to make it so her Q only stuns if she's like in her ultimate frenzy, right? Um, it's a good idea, but I think it makes her way to rely on ultimate. Even though I want her to rely on ultimate, I don't want it to be too ult reliant, since I think it's kind of less fun. Um, yeah, I think this is all, but I think this is the general idea. Push a lot of the stats from her Q, W, into her other ability, which is mostly her ultimate. Her E is just not reliable enough to ever be used well. It's just really clunky to actually use. Mostly you only use it to stop the taunt and to get like heal in the middle of fights. I like that, but it's also really clunky to use. So I don't think pushing any stats into it is actually a good idea. That's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to say. So yeah, that's it.